quite good when you actually stand up, people just go quiet. It doesn't work during the day, I'll tell you. Okay, before we start tonight, there's just a few people I would like to thank. One is Andrew Ross, who unfortunately is stuck in the M8. I'm not thanking Andrew for being stuck in the M8, but while Ali was kind of preparing for his kind of so-called job, Andrew Ross kept the boys going, keeping them on target and geeing them up with things, because boys of that age, being boys, it'll happen. I can't think where they get that from, but yeah, we'll do it next week. But Andrew kept them going with reminding them of fundraising and various other things. Tonight, Lewis for the technical wizardry. He doesn't think it's wizardry. I think it's amazing. All the stuff, thinking that a quill pen is a modern technology. Thank you. Why do I put myself in these situations? I don't know. 2 weeks ago it was 4 children of aged 4. But anyway, the one person that I would like to thank, and I've sort of done it already, but publicly, is Ali, standing at the back there, making ready for a quick getaway. When Ali suggested this, not tonight, but the boys going to Uganda, and I heard, oh yes, they're going, yes, that's good. I actually thought that it would be one of these 9-day wonders, which we're very good at. That, yes, it's all enthusiasm and everything else. And then I thought it'll just die away. But the money started to come in, and then they started talking about kind of plans of raising money and various things, and actually going to things like climbing mountains and packing bags for people for whatever reason. And all credit to you for taking up the challenge, but all credit for Ali for planting the seed initially and kind of, again, in getting them going at the beginning. And for that, I thank you, and I hope that maybe this becomes a fairly regular thing. Not for you parents, you don't need to do it every year, your turn's maybe over, but maybe other seniors that we have over the next few years, because I do know that the battalion is planning to make this a more regular event. And we just look forward to that, I think. So, thank you to all these people there. And also to the parents, yes, it just dawned on me there, for the parents for their support as well. But I'm not going to say too much about that, because I know one of the boys has got that. We just start with a word of prayer. Lord God, we thank you for men and women throughout the years who have risked everything, including their life in some cases, to spread the good news of your love to people throughout the world. We thank you that this work goes on today, and we commit the work done by churches in Luero to you. Be with Scott, Andrew and Neil as they share their experiences with us this evening. Amen.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I was one of the boys that was in Uganda during the summer. I'd just like to start off by thanking everybody that either donated some money to help us get there or knit teddies and supported us on our way to actually get to make the trip happen. So I'd just like to say thank you to everyone that participated and helped us out with that. But like Mr. Harrow said, which was, not going to lie, kind of stepping on my toes of the bit he told me to do, was when the idea first came to us, it was just Ali had heard from one of his friends in the activities committee that there might be a trip running next year, and if anyone wanted to put their name down and show a bit of interest. And to be honest, I don't think many of us thought it would actually happen. But then the fundraising thing started to sort of gather a bit of speed, and we started getting some money, and it was, before we knew it, we'd actually left and we were there. So it was a wee bit surreal for the start. That's just a picture I should have put up much earlier of the team. So the first sort of sponsored event we did, and it was the first time the whole group was together, was the hike up Ben Lomond, which we all look so enthusiastic about at this picture, which was taken at 0 feet, compared to this, which was taken at probably a quarter of the way up, and I was ready to quit and go home. But that was our first fundraiser, and that was when things really started to become concrete, and it was definitely going to happen. We had before we left, there was a lot of other stuff to do. We had like a lot of sort of things to collect, like sports kit and teddies for kids out there. So a lot of people helped us out, and we eventually got all that sorted. And then the vaccinations, which our parents helped us out quite a bit with on a financial front. And the Uganda bans, which I think pretty much everyone here will have a couple at least lying about the house that they don't know if it's okay yet to get rid of. We got slides. The person that was supposed to do this part hasn't showed up, so we have no slides, but I can maybe try and come up with something off the cuff. The travelling about, travelling about for Uganda was started off, we got told you'll be flying there with KLM, and when we arrived at the airport, there was no KLM jet in sight, and we had some other airline that no one had heard of that took us there in conditions that I'm convinced my human rights were breached, I'm not going to lie. But the plane was okay. When we got to Uganda, it was the middle of the night, and we met Gabriel Kajambu, the pastor that the sort of Ugandan side organising the trip was through, and he took us out to the car park, and there was like a lot of buses and lorries and things. And we kept walking, and as we walked further from the airport, we noticed the quality and size of the buses getting slightly smaller, till we arrived at the last bus parked in the place, which was a small minibus, I think, with fold-down seats that were, it wasn't safe, to be honest with you. And I don't know if you can imagine a Ugandan road in the middle of the night. It's not exactly it's not the M8 that Mr. Ross is currently stuck on. But it did get us around safely, so all in all, travelling wasn't actually too bad. It was better than expected. We'd actually been promised worse. But I think that's pretty much all I can say on that. But Neil, can pass you over to Neil now, who can tell you a bit about the work that was done when we were out there.
First of all, we have the flagpoles. This was what the Ugandan school use for assemblies. They usually line up in front of the flagpoles, which has their flag, the Scottish flag, I think, and one more, which was put up for us, which I believe was the BB flag. This is just to keep them patriotic, to stay in front of the flag, and for everyone to be in front of each other. We were moving the flagpoles from one side of the school to the other, which sounds a reasonable petty task. But when we found out that the flagpoles were actually 3 feet deep in solid concrete, and all we were given was a pickaxe, it wasn't that easy. We managed, after a long day, to get through maybe a foot of concrete. Yeah, a whole day, non-stop, 1 foot of concrete. And when we came back to it, we found out there was another 2. So we eventually just dug round it, and we managed to pick it up. It's quite heavy. And then it took, I think there was about 6 or 7 of us to carry one flagpole from this side of the school to the other side of the school. 7 people for one flagpole. We had to do that with 2 of them. It wasn't good. Next, we're moving on to the flattening of the ground. This was Kerry's project. Kerry was out there for around 3 months and to work with the school personally. And this was her project of giving the primary school a new playground. So it was that the Ugandans had been in before us and built the walls all around it. And our job was to put the dirt back into it and flatten it all down, so that it could be then laden with concrete and painted on, so that the primary school kids could have primary school games like hopscotch and etc. Next was the building the weather station. This was new for all of us. A lot of us didn't know what much of the equipment was, if we're honest, but it was interesting to see. It was working with things called hoes, which are awkward shovels, which is just like a big stick with a bit of metal horizontal to it. And it's not the easiest to use, and it was a lot of hard work. But we started off with digging the holes to put the instruments in, and then it just went on from there. Went on to getting them up, getting the concrete, which we did mix ourselves, and we can all say that we're a bit of a DIY master of making concrete. Maybe Scott's not. Can't say Scott's particularly good with his hands. But next came putting the fence around it so that it was safe from everyone around and it could be left untouched and unharmed so that the weather could take its course on it. We did find there was a few problems with getting the equipment, which, as you can imagine, in Uganda it's not the easiest of stuff. The metal fences, I think we were about 3 feet short, it ended up. So it took us a while to get that, but all in all, we got the job done and everyone seemed quite happy with it. Okay, we'll just go back. Our final job out there was a lot of painting. A lot of the walls and podiums and everything had became, the paint had ran off them just through storm weather or just ageing. So another job for us was to paint them all and try and make it all look nice again. I think that's a lot of the work that we did. It was, as you can imagine, with the weather, it's hard going. It was a lot of water was taken on, and I think a few of us did struggle with the heat, but it was all worth it to see what came in the end and how much it helped the school.
Yeah, so while we were there, we got offered the chance to go on many different trips. The first trip that we went on was about 2 days in, and by this point we'd all pretty much exhausted a lot of the food we'd taken. So we'd been told to take like cereal bars, food that would keep us going if we were really tired. But we found out after a couple of days that we got tired really easily, so we needed a lot of food. So we got given the chance to go into Lowero, and well, Lowero was bare, very bare. The town itself was, as you can see from the picture, there was just nobody around pretty much, or there was areas in the back streets that were just markets, and all they sold was fruit, veg, and like there was live cattle or stuff that we could just walk past and people tried to sell it to you. This is what the main street of Lowero looked like, and as you can see, it was very busy. There was lots of different people like on the edges. There was just the road, and then there was like a little ditch that everyone just flung the rubbish into, and then there was just people just sat there on mats selling clothes, irons, kettles, like non-electric obviously, because there was not very much power. The town was something that we didn't all, or I personally didn't expect. I didn't expect to see such poverty so close to the area that we were working in, and yeah, I was just shocked. I was shocked. The next place that we went to was the equator. That's the picture of us all standing on the equator. The equator was also very bleak. It was just a line painted across the sand, and you could just walk between either side. It was tourist orientated, so there were shops that you could buy things such as like Ugandan flags, statues, cow horns, as McMorris decided to purchase and was very proud of. This is a picture of all of us with Gabriel. That's just a picture of us all with the Scotland flag, and we felt that was quite important. This was one of the most impressive things about the equator. There was one of these bowls on the southern hemisphere, and then there was one actually on the equator, and then there was one on the northern hemisphere. And the people showed you this trick where they took you to the northern hemisphere and filled it with water, and then they put a flower in, and then they let the water drain out of the basin, and the water went anti-clockwise. And then they took you to the one in the southern hemisphere and done the exact same, but instead of going anti-clockwise, it went clockwise. and then they took you to the one in the middle, and the water literally didn't spin anyway, it just dropped. After the equator, we went to the source of the Nile. This was also just a really, really big tourist spot. It sold lots of different touristy things that you would expect. Again, it was roughly the same stuff that they sold at the equator, apart from maybe some extra stuff like fountains and things. The final trip that we'd done was to Kampala, and Kampala's the main city in the country. This is what would be the equivalent of the high street in Kampala, and it was just a street that had it didn't have big name brands, but it was probably what they'd consider big name brands, and it sold the expensive, it sold what they would consider expensive, but the money they had wasn't very, money over there is not worth much compared to ours. The exchange rate we got was £1 equaled 4,000 Ugandan shillings. So pretty much by the end, when all of us had all our money together as a group, we would have been millionaires. So on this street, the average stuff maybe sold for quite a lot of money, but not many people were shopping on the street. Then we went into the back streets, and this was a rude awakening. The back streets were just bustling with people, thousands of people going places, trying to sell you stuff. They literally wanted everything. One of the things that was really weird being, because the people over there, they'd obviously seen white people who'd helped, but they wouldn't be used to them, and anything that they knew about them, they thought we had money. So when we walked past them, they had their eyes either focused on you or on your wallet, knowing that you had money, and they were always trying to sell you something. And they always tried, if they saw that you were white and you were buying something off them, they'd probably increase the price by about an extra 10,000 shillings, thinking that you'd be willing to pay that because you've got the money. While we were there, we went up and had a drink in a restaurant, and this was the view from the top of the restaurant. That was just hundreds of minivans, just all parked. That just shows how busy the town was, and just the sheer volume of people within it. While we were there, we all bought many different things. McMorris bought a cow horn. I bought a kanzu, which you can see later, and we got other little bits and pieces. Some of them will be in display outside. However, this was probably one of the funniest things that they tried to sell, me in particular. They tried to sell me a chicken. Someone pulled me over and offered me this chicken. So this just goes to show that you can buy chickens anywhere. But by the end of it, we didn't particularly like chickens because, well, you'll find out later on.
During the day, there was certain hours we weren't supposed to work. Gabriel told us we couldn't because it would be too hot for us to basically be able to do anything effectively before we started to melt. So we had a wee bit of free time during the afternoon and then towards the end at night. And probably one of our main things was playing football with the sort of local secondary school and the primary school. And when I think the last couple of trips, the record is 2 defeats against the teams, and we've managed to improve that record to 5 defeats by getting beat twice off the secondary and once off the primary, which was pretty poor, to be honest with you. It was really shameful, even though it was when we were getting ready to play football, we went and got changed to put our shoes on, and the Ugandans, to get ready, took theirs off and still kicked the ball harder than any of us. Yeah, it keeps the 70k record of never winning at football going strong. Another game that someone invented by the second day was catch the chicken, because I don't know if anyone knows how annoying a chicken is at 5 o'clock in the morning, but when you're knackered anyway and really want to sleep, and then you get woken up by that one outside your window laughing at you, it's really not the most pleasant thing. So we had, I think, 10 people surrounded one chicken and still failed to catch it. And it even started going up trees and stuff and just defying its genes to annoy us. But I think someone got one Out of the 24 of us and 10 chickens, we caught one. And it was a bit of a fluke, because I think it was blind in one eye. But I think our main free time activity was probably sleeping, due to us being quite lazy and unfit, and because it was really hot and because of the chicken as well was catching up. And also, you can see in the top left picture there, we did make some close friendships. By the sort of third day. That was, I think, we don't have any more photos for free time, but a lot of it was, we went a lot of visits to the primary school and just went and sort of chatted with the wee kids and stuff like that, and we would play cards and things and just sort of go around the place and explore and talk to Gabriel and talk to some of the other people, the Ugandans that work there, about what they do during the day. And it was just quite interesting to hear, like, one of the guys there, Robert, who was like the head of education at the secondary school / all-round handyman, works 7 days a week and gets one afternoon off a month. Then he drives into Kampala to work for someone different on that afternoon. So it's quite incredible, really, how much they actually do and compared to how little time they take off. So I think that was us for free time. So I think we can pass you to Scott, who'll talk about the kids from the schools.
Yeah, hi. I'm just going to talk about the children now, which were pretty much the biggest part of our whole trip. For some actually made the trip as well. In the place we were staying, they had a school, a primary and a secondary school. This was made up from orphans who actually lived in the area and just people who came from the surrounding area. I think in general we're all very touched by the children and just their reaction to us. They had so much little, but they were so happy. I know you probably hear that all the time and you see that on television, but when you actually see it, it's quite something. So here we have here, the first day we went on a tour and we brought, in a typically Scottish, a big blown up mitre. We kicked onto the pitch, they were all playing at break, and this was the reaction we got when we kicked a proper ball on, because they have a ball that's made of a banana leaf. Probably if some Scottish players had a ball that was made of a banana leaf, they would do much better. But yeah, this was their reaction, chased it about, absolutely loved it. So it was just quite amazing to see that, and even on the first day we could tell that was how little they had when even we just gave them a simple thing like a ball. This is the sort of courtyard area. This kind of area is where we made the weather station as well. And this was on the first few days. This was the day when we had to. What was I going to say? Oh, this is the day when we were going to give out all the clothes to the children. Clothes we brought an extra bag to give to them for an allowance of clothes. So this was the kind of reaction we had. We were all lining up, really excited to see what they'll get. And this was also the day when we gave out teddies as well. Thank you all for knitting the teddies. It was some reaction. This was them waiting.
See the classes, the family classes, you want some wee guys and some big guys, because you come by ability, not by age.
I'm not entirely sure what that clappy thing is, but it was quite something to see. So definitely, I think this day was the highlight of the trip for many. You'll see probably why in a minute as well. Here it is them getting their teddies, so hopefully people who all knitted the teddies, I hope you get some satisfaction in this, seeing this now. It's quite something, just simple thing like teddies they were unbelievably happy with. Here's another picture. Look, I mean, just look at the smiles on their faces, it's quite unbelievable really. Here's a video. Hang on, I'm just going to say actually, before this, ignore the silly idiot that goes, oh, I don't think the P7s are so happy with their teddies. That's me. So,
I don't think the P7s are so enthusiastic there, Teddies. Oh.
In spite of that, just chucking teddies about, they were actually quite happy to get them. Yeah, I think that's definitely, I took many photos and videos, but I think that was probably my favourite, I would have said, just to see the happiness in their faces. Next, we gave out, as I was trying to say earlier when I forgot to put my false teeth in, we were giving out, Neil gave out strips in typical Neil fashion. They had to be Rangers ones, of course. For the kids, for the football team. This was also something that was very satisfying for those guys that love football. So yeah, here we are, getting our Rangers strips home and away. We were all delighted to get in. They were just so pleased to see to get them. The coaches as well managed to kit them out, or at least I did. That's my local football team, Claremont, as well. Managed to get them kitted out with all the strips. It was just great to see, really. We went to the church as part of our trip. I think Scott might talk about that later. Just again, the children, absolutely amazing at the church, singing and dancing all the time. The enthusiasm they show towards worship is just really quite unbelievable. I couldn't really get a photo that wasn't blurry because they were all moving. So, yeah, apologies for that. Oh, that is one cheesy smile. Right. Yeah, in general, they just showed great fascination towards us. They were giving us high fives all the time as we were walking past. Just great affection towards them, and we showed great affection back because I think they actually really made the trip for us, I would have said. They just made such a big impression on us. They made the trip probably more special as well. Particularly those two there, they sort of hung about the compound that we were staying in. They're orphans, and I think they were always around every day, and it was so sad when we had to leave them, and they seemed really sad as well. So we knew that we'd at least made a bit of an impression when we were going away, and they were so disappointed to see us go. But I think actually that the children alone would make us want to go back, just to give them any sort of help and happiness. Is, would be greatly appreciated for them, and it's small things like that that made this trip so brilliant. So thanks for listening.
As Scott said, while we were over there, we went to church. And that was one of our main things over there, because the Boys Brigade is obviously a Christian organisation. So the BB encourages boys to go to church, although they don't obviously have to. And while we were over there, we had to go to the worship. One week we led the worship. The second Sunday that we went, we led the worship. However, on the first Sunday, we just went to a normal Ugandan service. And this was us lining up to go. We all had to wear our Sunday best, as I guess you'd call it. The best thing we had with us, which was these polo shirts. And then we went all looking the same so that we could be defined, so that we could be recognisable. And the warm welcome we received was amazing. When we arrived, there was people up on stage singing and dancing, as Scott said. These people were praying well in song, and to see that was an amazing sight. This was called the Rainbow Choir, and it was made up of solely kids of primary school age, and the enthusiasm they put into their songs was unbelievable. They sung some songs in English because we were there, and some songs in Swahili, which is the national language of Uganda. While they're singing, people can go up and give them money, which is a lot different from our services, because our services are usually just led by a minister standing up here, talking, and not very much involvement from the congregation. Whereas over there, the congregation's constantly up, singing, dancing, involved. So, yeah. When we were there the first week, we all had, the Sunday was the second or third day after we arrived. And we'd kind of got to know some of the kids, but we didn't know them all, so we had to stand up in front of the congregation, which was made up mostly of kids, because the congregation was made up of all the kids who stayed within the compound, and then some kids travelled from out with and every Sunday. So we all had to stand up and introduce ourselves and say something that we were interested in or something that we took part in. And that let them all know that we were not big, scary people and that we were friendly. The second week that we went, we were taking the service. So we took them through some of our traditions or how we'd lead a service normally. However, we decided we couldn't not have some Ugandan stuff there, so we decided to dress up in the national Ugandan dress of a kanzu. For anyone who wants to see one, I'll be wearing mine after we finish talking. The kanzu is a white robe that goes from your neck and covers all the way down to the bottom of your feet. If you can see the lady that's standing there in the green dress, that's the lady, the women's national dress of Uganda, and it's basically, the best way I can describe it is like being wrapped up in a big curtain made of silk. The prices for these were actually really cheap. Like the kanzu cost 20,000 shillings, which would be about £10. However, the national dress for women cost about 100,000 shillings. So there was quite a difference in price, but that's probably because of how much material had to go into the women's. So while we were there, Ross took the sermon along with Luke, and some of the boys got involved by doing prayers, doing readings from the Bible, and just all of us tried to get involved any way we could. We also chose the songs for that week, which were all in English, and we done Give Me Oil in My Lamp, My God is So Big, So Strong and So Mighty, Will Your Anchor Hold, which is the B-Beam song, and the other one escapes me. Do you know? Do you know the other song that we sung? Be Thou My Vision. Also, we had bagpipes. We decided Michael played the bagpipes, although apparently his reed broke, but that's what he's claiming. But they weren't played to the best of what the bagpipes can be played, but it was still nice to have them there. And he played Heart the Herald Angels Sing, I think. And all the Ugandans knew the song and they all got involved, so that we ended up singing it twice because they wished to sing it as well, and they sung it better than us. They sung a song in our own language better than we did. That sums up us. So yeah, the worship was, I found the worship over there amazing. I've never been to a service personally that I could say I've enjoyed more. No offence, Gordon. I enjoyed it so much, and Gabriel's passion for the Bible and the congregation's general passion was amazing, and you could feel it. Even though they don't have a big church like ours, theirs is just a wooden, it's just made of wood, and it's only temporary for the moment, but it's wood, and it's almost about the size of the big hall, and just the sheer enjoyment they had, even though it was something so small, was amazing. And Neil's going to talk about our last few days there.
Yeah, on the last day, it was very much packing and just getting ready to leave, really. It was a hard day for us all, because to get so close to so many people and then have to go, yeah, I'll see you later, it's not exactly the easiest thing. So we all contributed, I think it was £5, and we bought a pig. Yeah, we bought a pig. It was one of the more interesting questions I've ever been asked. Would you like to buy a pig? Can't say it happens often, but it ended up we had pork on a stick. We'd just get a big stick around that size with a lot of meat on it. It was lovely, I'm not gonna lie. It had been cooked for quite a long time, and after not having particularly a lot of food, a lot of meat over the time there, meat was great. But it was very much, we all came together, a lot of the people that we worked with and the pastor and his family, we all came together and ate together, and it was the perfect last day. As you come with a group of boys, there was silly games. Here, one of the leaders, Ross, decided it was going to be a good idea for us to try and make a human pyramid. Now, if you can see slightly, I'm at the very bottom, just 1 inch from the left. I'm screaming in pain. There is a lot of people on top, and it hurts. Especially when Gabriel got on. Gabriel's a big man, and all muscle, of course, but he's heavy, he's a big man. So, as you can imagine, it collapsed very soon. But all in all, it was the perfect day. We managed to spend a wee bit of time with all the kids before we left. We got to see everything we've done, get a few pictures before we went away. And this was one of the final pictures before the sun went down. Just a group of us, and if you can see, there's Robert in the middle, which Andrew was talking about earlier, the head of education. He was a big part of our trip, and this was one of the only group pictures we did get with him. The trip was, in my mind, highly successful, highly moving for us all. It's something that I don't know if we'll ever do again, but it's safely changed all our lives for the better. We've made a lot of friends that we'll keep for hopefully the rest of our life, and it's made other friendships stronger. The trip was long. It seemed long travelling, but it was so short when you had to actually say goodbye. It was hard to say goodbye to Gabriel after how welcoming he was to us, but we did what we were there to do. So that's the presentation over. I'd like to thank you for coming out and everything, all the support that you have given us, and I'd like to pass it over to Mr. Harrow.
Thanks very much, guys. Over the last few years, they've landed me in quite a lot. Now it's payback time. Would the four of you like to come up here? And Ali has a roaming mic. I don't know how Mike feels, but he's coming up anyway. And this will give you a chance to ask any questions. The other stuff, believe it or not, they had prepared. They can't prepare for this. So, yeah. No, 10 minutes. If you do it from here, because that makes sense. So if anybody's got any questions, Avril's got a question, right?
How did you get on with your washing and your pollutions? You never, we never saw that photograph.
That's because it's X-rated.
Well, I think the people here would like to see it.
Lewis, you can try and get it off Facebook if you want.
No, Scott, you've got it.
Do I?
The toilets.
Ah, the toilets.
We're just having a conversation and we're answering the question. What's happening? Are we getting the picture? Go, come on. Right. Has anyone got any filler?
Santa in the toilet.
No, for washing we had basically in the two bigger dorms that we were staying in had a sort of shower cabinet, and when we first saw it was like a shower tray and we were like, oh happy days, we're getting a proper shower, and then they handed us a basin, and it was basically you'd fill it up from the water tank, so it was just a white basin full of water and you got a jug or a sponge and just sort of washed yourself as best you could, it was an interesting experience.
The most interesting experience was opening the suitcase when we get back home. I've never been hit with such a waft of smell. No. She knows. Particularly the underwear black.
We actually had. Yeah. There you go.
There's the toilets.
Yeah, the pit. Nobody used that after they sort of walked within 10 feet of it. So,
Basically, the top right one is like a. Oh,
Where did you go then?
there was one kind of proper toilet plumbed in, but you needed to fill the cistern up yourself if you wanted to use it. But there was basically a rule that kind of echoes from Meet the Fockers, was if it was a number one, don't bother flushing it because it's a waste of water. So you just had to kind of let it fester for a couple of days. So it wasn't the best. That picture there, the one on the sort of left-hand side, is someone thought it was a great idea to put the camera down the pit and take a wee picture. And that trench, that hole, was originally about 100 feet deep. So it's going to need emptied quite soon. So it was sad to leave, but we probably got out just in time in case that job was on the horizon.
When you said it was hot, how hot was hot?
Just about 30 odd degrees, but it felt warmer. It was very humid. It was. I think that was probably the issue, particularly during the night as well, when you've got a really uncomfortable bed and a chicken as well. So but that was particularly hard. Just working mainly. I don't know if there's a horrible picture of Neil with soaked in sweat. And
yeah, that was one of the more interesting experiences.
Yeah, we saw him that day. He'd just come back from doing that flagpole, as he'd explained. There was me and Andrew standing there with our paintbrushes, not a drip on us. Right? You sweating over there, Neil? I am sweating. What you been doing? He wasn't pleased with us.
I wasn't best pleased.
Yeah, but I think the humidity mainly. But I think we all coped. Some of us, a couple of us did fall a wee bit ill. I don't know whether that was just a diet change, but maybe a bit of heat stroke as well. Neil got particularly bad sunburn one day. But we managed to. We got quite acclimatised after a while, so it wasn't too bad. Too much like Ian.
Did the primary school children speak good English? Or was that a problem?
No, some did. The younger children, kind of primary 1 and 2, they struggled a lot more with it. Yeah, alright, well, they get the first lessons in primary 2 in English, so obviously it was very basic. What you had to speak to them was like, hi. Well, especially with us talking, we had to slow it right down. It was very much, we couldn't abbreviate or anything. It had to be, how are you, in that pace near enough. It was, they couldn't really say much. They just kind of nodded their head at us and smiled. So we took that as a positive. But
better reaction than we usually get, to be fair. So.
Yeah, our reaction to each other wasn't quite as pleasant as well. Dripping in sweat and people going, you alright? No. I'm quite minging, I'm a bit sweaty, but they're still asking me if I'm alright. But as you got through, you could have more conversations with the older children, and well, it was reasonably easy to talk to especially the second year students. In our final day, there was a small performance, and they actually translated for us, so that because they spoke in Ugandan and English, so that the children who didn't know complete English could understand the performance as well.
Sorry. Yeah.
Is English their second language there, or is it like French or what?
It would depend on the area. Like for the children coming to that school, they're taught it as their second language. They're encouraged to speak it as their first language. especially among each other, because that's how they'll learn best. I think that they're expected to, when they get to the secondary school, I think they're expected to answer in English. Yeah, and their exams are in English in secondary school.
Did you pick up any Swahili yourself?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't.
We got one word down because the first few days when we were there, we noticed whenever we came into the area, it was the word Mzungo was getting said quite a lot, and we asked Gabriel what it meant, and it literally translated just means white boys. And we actually did have, I overheard one day we were playing football against some boys from the local town, and there was more Ugandans than there were of us, so a couple of boys came to join, and they literally said to each other, "You are playing with the white boys," because we didn't have enough players. But other than that, we couldn't really pick up much of the language, to be honest with you. Because they try and get them to speak English because they can get, when they leave school, any sort of job they might want to get will probably be more predominantly English, so they don't really try and teach it as a subject or anything. It's just like their local dialect. But they only really want to learn in English. So we didn't really pick up much of Ugandan.
Not even maybe like please, thank you, hello, anything like that at all, no? Excellent.
There was one word which I can't actually remember.
Thank you, Neil, that's good inspiration.
There was one word which... You're cringing already, I've not even said it. No, it was water. I can't actually remember it, but the word for water and poo is literally the same word. You say water quicker than you do poo. That's literally the only difference.
Can I have a glass of poo?
So we were trying to say that to people and they were just laughing at us. They didn't tell us for another week after that what we were saying. So when we actually found out, well, it was a bit embarrassing, to be honest.
Moira was asking, did you meet any deaf or disabled kids when you were there? Or did you notice any?
Disabled boy that played football actually in the high school. He was actually much better than all of us. No, but yeah, it was really good. We didn't see many, but yeah, there was a boy that played in the high school football team, very, very talented. He was partially disabled in his arms, really, wasn't it? Yeah. In Kampala, we did see a few more unfortunate people, and people with sort of disfigurements and things, and that was quite eye-opening. But yeah, apart from that, we didn't see too much. Yeah.
What did you have to eat?
Well, this won't take long. Rice, beans, and potatoes. That's yeah, and on the last day we got brown rice. Oof, that was quite a treat. But actually, I think we did eat well. They tried their best to accommodate us. They even made chips for us a few times, which we really enjoyed. Also, the girl that was Kerry, that who talked about that? Someone talked about. Neil talked about earlier. She brought some Nando's salt, peri salt with them, so we all used that. She was raging. But as we said, on the last day we got pork, and that was really good to have. But it did get a wee bit towards the end. We were sort of struggling eating up all the food, but they really did accommodate as well. Tried their best. The food tasted absolutely fine. However, I think we actually struggled most with our own food. Andrew McMorris, who took half an hour to eat 1 Weetabix in the morning.
Yeah, the breakfasts were interesting to say the least. With the breakfast, they did accommodate us lots. There was the option of Weetabix, but you did have it with room temperature milk. I don't like milk, but I think it was interesting to say the least. We usually had the option of pineapple or watermelon. This is fruit that I don't think I'll ever taste again. Like pineapple or watermelon, like it was different class to what we get here. The fact it was picked straight off and literally put into your bowl, it's like nothing I'll ever have again.
Managed to smuggle 40 back.
Aye.
Drink was
water.
It was just water.
And watered down, diluting, just
Yeah, there was in the mornings we did get some fruit juice, which was lovely. It grew on me. At first I wasn't so sure about it, but once you drink water for kind of a week straight, a wee bit of taste and your juice is lovely.
We also, when we were in like Kampala and Luwera, we got the option to buy like Coca-Cola, Sprite and Fanta, but they were like, had like 10 times the sugar concentrate.
Tasted much better.
Yeah, they tasted a lot better, but needless to say our teeth were getting a rough workout.
The sugar buzz.
So, but the Fanta over there wasn't yellow, it was orange because of the concentrate. What?
It was radioactive.
They say it was radioactive.
You mentioned all the children that you saw at the school. What are their prospects? What's going to happen
A
to them?
lot of them actually have very high prospects. Like if you spoke to them, they say they want to be doctors, lawyers, other high-profile professional careers. However, teachers, yeah. Well, Mr. Harrow. But I think that they didn't actually fully comprehend like how difficult it would be to get that. So this was like people in primary 7 first year who were thinking about that. But for them to be able to get to get to that stage, it would have required a lot of education.
They do the exams though. They do sit English exams. It's A levels and GCSEs that they sit. They get it sent over, so it's the same exam papers as they do here. But they do. The Ugandan kids work really hard. They'll stay overnight in the school 6 days a week, and they'll get up at 5 in the morning. Their lessons start at 7, so they can work in the morning. Mr. Harrow's just dreaming of the day when his kids will care that much. You like your half hour a day at the moment. But they do work really hard on their, because they do have the aspirations to go really far. Their sights they have got high sights on what they want to do. We did that. They do have in Kampala, Kampala's about 2 hours drive maybe, is the university. So there is a lot of them were saying to me when I was asking them that they do want to eventually go there or go to like a college or something nearby to try and get a job in a decent field. So they do set their sights quite high, and Gabriel says that some of them will be able to make it that far. It's just getting the jobs after they get their qualifications will be more difficult because of not a lot of the areas have the facilities to accommodate their job.
Is the education free, or do they have to pay fees to attend school? And also because of the uniforms that they wear?
Yeah, they do pay fees for their education. I think Gabriel though said that for the orphaned kids, they cover most of it. Gabriel will cover it from like the money he gets for his charity to help the orphaned kids get through. Yeah, and a lot of it and they do subsidise it for people that struggle to go. And the uniforms they wear are included in their education as well, so they can feel like they belong to the school a bit more.
Could you maybe tell us the background to Gabriel? I've heard that, but the rest of the people haven't.
Right. Gabriel was born in Uganda, obviously, and then he came over to Britain. He attended an international Christian college in Ipswich for a year. He had an idea of training. He'd been taught the Bible, and he had the idea of becoming a pastor. So he went there for a year and decided that was what he wanted to do. And then the person who was in charge of him said, right, God will guide you to where you want to go. So he gave him a book of every single Christian college in the full of the United Kingdom and said, let God help you pick which one. So Gabriel got it down to London, a Christian college in London, and ICC, International Christian College in Glasgow. I don't know what it was called back when he attended it about 20 years ago. But so Gabriel decided on International Christian College. So he went there for 3 years and trained to be a pastor. During his time there, he met lots of different people, and he came up with this vision of going back to Uganda and starting the Lowero project and helping kids to find the faith and to find Christianity and to give them education. So after he'd done his 3 years, he travelled around churches, schools. He just travelled around the full United Kingdom, trying to raise awareness and trying to raise money to go back to Uganda and start this. He went everywhere in the United Kingdom you could probably think of. He went England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. He even decided to venture into Europe and went to such places such as Sweden, Germany and Belgium. So once he'd gathered all this money, he managed to go back there and buy the plot of land, and he set up the school and the church for the kids, and they accepted. I couldn't tell you what the fees were, but since then it's just grown, and the school has now got, as the school now teaches up to S4, and basically the S4s that are there now were the primary ones that were there when Gabriel began it. And it's just gone on leaps and bounds. And Gabriel since then has taken trips back to Scotland, back to everywhere he visited, trying to raise more funds. He comes to East Kilbride, he goes to Duncanrigg Secondary, and talks in there, and he also goes to some of the primary schools that Duncanrigg's connected with. I don't think he goes to Calderglen, but I think he might be going there this year, because so many kids from Calderglen were at the Lowero Community Project with us. That's the background to Gabriel and the Lowero.
My question is, obviously over here we know quite like how poverty and how underprivileged they are in Uganda, but do they know how privileged we are to have our lives over here, and are they glad of what they've got, or were any of them jealous or anything like that? Did any of them seem that kind of way?
I know an answer.
I would say they were just more fascinated rather than jealous of us. The cameras they could have played with all day. Some of them, one of them actually did play with it all day, and we couldn't get it back off him. It was yours, yeah. But I don't think they're jealous. I just don't think they know enough about us and the rest of the world to be able to tell what's good and what's bad. They're just grateful for everything.
They do understand that white people are rich. But
yeah, I think we found in Uganda, people just in general, people were quite fascinated when we visited places, just because they think immediately of rich white people. And then they met us in our horrible clothes, stinking.
There was one of the girls that was, while we were there, I don't know if you've heard her, I think I might have been with someone else, but she said that her dream was for a white man to come over and marry her, so that she could get a better life. No.
What subjects were taught in the secondary school?
Geography was definitely one.
Pretty much most, apart from like ones that are specific to here, like French, German, obviously. I don't think they had like modern studies because they didn't have a very good grasp of what was happening in the world.
Man United.
Oh yeah,
a lot about Man United.
Yeah, well, the local papers seem to be able to tell us everything about the football, and then we've come back and found out half of it wasn't true.
Yeah.
About subjects and stuff though, what surprised me when we visited the primary school was that when we went into a lot of the classrooms and they were telling us the ages, it surprised me by the work they had on the walls, what the age range was, because they were doing sort of stuff that we would have covered in sort of first, second year, like sciences and stuff in primary 7. So they do the maths and sort of science fields, they do teach that quite in depth. They're quite important subjects out there. I know English is their main subject as well. Probably one of their main ones, but they teach pretty much everything you could do as a higher here. You could probably do as any level in Lowero. Yeah, and that was what the weather station we built was for the primary school. it's part of their programme. This primary education is to study geography, so they need to get a weather station built so they can complete their primary school kind of qualifications.
Also, like they varied in age ranges. For example, you could walk into a primary school class, and there would, or, yeah, primary 2 class, and there would be someone in that class who was like 8 or 9. No, it was didn't get. We were basically told that when they start school, they don't start based on their age. They start P1 basically. I think there was a limit, but they could come into like primary 1 at like age 8 or 9.
I think the oldest was 10, wasn't it, in primary 2?
Yeah, there was a 10-year-old in primary 2. So it came down to when you were able to join the school, not what age you were.
What was the like the furthest distance kids had to travel to get to the school? Was there ones that had to travel like several hours to get there, or was it just kind of close by?
I think they stayed, didn't they?
Yeah, I think if they were a certain distance away, they stayed in the school. That was one of the projects that was going on when we were there, but we weren't directly involved in. They were building sort of boarding houses for it was called Scotland House because of Gabriel's connection with here. But I think there is actually. I was surprised how many schools there are in the Luero region. So I think they do have catchment areas, so I don't think it's ever going to be a distance too far to walk. If you live a certain distance away and want to go to the school, you get boarding accommodation. So they don't actually have as far to walk as they did when it first started up, now that they've got places for them to board and stay in.
Can I just ask, is that a slide of the chicken you caught?
That one did get away to much of our unhappiness that it was a hatred of ours, we have to say. But that is I think it's a cockerel? Crane. A crane, sorry. The Ugandan crane, which is the national bird.
No, it's the national emblem, it's not the national bird.
Ah well, national emblem then.
I didn't go as bad as you thought.
No, it didn't. No. Over the years, they have done many good things, and I think that's one of the best things you've ever done. Thank you.